Good evening, and thanks for coming tonight to all of those out in the audience and to our candidates as well. My name is Debbie Miller, and I am the president with the Greater Woodland Park Chamber of Commerce, and I'm honored tonight to come down and visit with you and serve as your moderator for the candidates forum. I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules for this evening before we go forward. The rules tonight are each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement. You can use that opening statement to tell a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the office. The order of introduction was done through our official number drawing. That was so official, I have to notice that. And so that was determined by that. We have a timekeeper, Simon, with us tonight, and he will help you out. You will have 2 minutes for your opening and closing statements, and you will have 2 minutes to answer each of your questions. So we have this official paddle I have used for years in Woodland Park, and you will see when it gets to 1:30, he will put this up for 30 seconds, and then Simon will turn it when it hits 2 minutes, and then you will promptly stop at that point.
So yellow means go faster.
You will be surprised how much 2 minutes can drag out. I have a list of questions tonight that are unknown to the candidates and were presented to me in sealed envelopes. No one has seen those questions but myself and those who developed the questions. In addition, Chris has passed around paper and pen to ask questions as well. If we have time to get to those, I certainly will. They're in the basket here. We will go through those questions as well. There may be duplicates of the questions that I have currently or have asked you, so we won't go into any duplication at that point in time. Again, you'll have 2 minutes to answer, and then after the questions and answers, we will allow you a 2-minute follow-up closing statement, again, to explain that. So I'm going to introduce the candidates right now, starting from my left. We have Margaret Peterson, and Margaret's running for village trustee, town trustee. We have Jane Newberry with us tonight, and she is running for Green Mountain Falls mayor position, and we have Chris Quinn with us this evening, who is running for trustee as well. So at this point, we will begin our opening statements. So Ms. Peterson, we will start with you.
Yay, I won.
You have a 2-minute opening. Please feel free to be seated as well. This will be a long evening, so you might want to sit as well.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Margaret Peterson, and I grew up here in Green Mountain Falls. I was 1 when my parents moved here. So this is my home. I don't know anywhere else. As I was growing up, my dad was a trustee. He was in charge of the pool. And he was mayor pro tem. He was also the town magistrate before we had people that came in and did what they do during court. And from that, that's where I learned a lot of my work ethic. My dad was also a janitor at the church in Wildwood. He had a lot of different jobs, a lot of different things he did. And my understanding of what the trustee position is the work involved. You know, it's not just showing up for meetings, it's doing the work and understanding what the work is. And understanding that you need to make time for that. Because that's what I saw growing up. That was the ethic that was instilled in me. And I've learned a lot in the last year as well. I'm a financial aid administrator. I work a lot with the Department of Education. I work a lot with federal entities, with state entities. I understand that, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to make sense. There's not a lot of logic involved, but you still have to do what you need to do to follow the laws. And being in a municipality, it's the same. And even though sometimes you don't understand, you still have to do what you have to do to follow the law and be within the law. That's what I've learned, and that's what I will plan on continuing to do as a trustee.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. We'll move on to Ms. Newberry.
My name is Jane Newberry. As many of you know, I have been serving on council for 10 years. I took over someone else's term and then subsequently had 2 further terms. During that time, I have served as liaison to different departments, most recently the administrative department, where my passion lies, because when I am not here, I am the assistant to the athletic director at Colorado College. I did grow up in UPass. I actually went kindergarten through 12 with Margaret. So we're very,
school teacher.
very local girls, and certainly have a passion for UPass and all that goes on here. I'm a very concrete goals kind of person. I think I am driven to meet certain goals and what I really want to see happening in the town. First things first, we need to make sure we're on track with the building of the new town hall. There's really been a lot of questions lately about town hall, but I think we need to move forward and make this the jewel for UPass that it truly can be. It's not just for civic functions such as us sitting up here. It's a place that other civic organizations can go to, have their meetings, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I have concrete goals in mind. I am a person who likes to work. I pursue grants. I'll talk a lot faster. And my next grant I really want to pursue is the children's play park down here next to the pool. And if all things go as I hope, my goal is to make it handicap accessible so all children can play. That is the next thing I would like to work on. And I have more, but Sonia wants me to stop.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Moving on, we'll reach over here to Mr. Quinn for your opening statement.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Quinn. I've been a resident here for 4 years. I moved here from Florida, and beyond that, many other places. But I found Green Mountain Falls to be something that I was looking for. I figured if I'm going to move to Colorado, I'm going to live in the mountains. And I'm going to live in a small town, and I'm going to enjoy everything that goes along with that. Right now, I work for Colorado Springs Utilities. I am a senior contract analyst. I deal a lot with construction-related activities, engineering. I have background in engineering and environmental sciences. I'm a graduate of University of South Florida. I'm pursuing this seat just as I feel it's kind of my civic duty. I've spent a lot of my careers in public service in various capacities, and I think it's time for me to do what I can and bring level-headed decision-making, thoughtful, consideration of issues, and do the best that I can for the town that I live in. I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to this stuff. I've never served in any official capacity like this, but I do. Throughout my career, I've worked a lot with codes of ordinances, rules and regulations, so I'm very familiar with the language that's used, and I think that I can bring some of my skills to bear.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. We'll move on now to our questions. We will be rotating the questions so that everyone will have the opportunity to ask a question or to answer a question first. You will have 2 minutes to answer that question, and each candidate will answer every question. So we will start with our first question. We'll start with Ms. Newberry. What is your vision for the town of Green Mountain Falls?
Gosh, my vision. I think my vision always has to reflect where we've come from as well. I'd like to honor the past that we've had. We've had an amazing past. We've done amazing things. And we also need to look forward and keep growing what we can grow with respect to that. That seems a little vague, but the truth is we have work that needs to be done. We always have work that needs to be done. We have roads and bridges that still need to be looked at. That's another thing that I want to do. We have parks improvements besides the play park. There's always ongoing projects. So in some ways I see the forest. I want to see where we can go, what we can become, but I also see the trees of how we need to take those steps to get there. We have in the past, and I have to give a shout out to Dick Bratton, who was instrumental in the comprehensive plan. We have a good plan in place. Same thing with Catherine. We have Economic Sustainability Committee survey that they did, and we need to honor the people who answer those questions, take a good look at those questions, make sure we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Ms. Newberry. Mr. Quinn, do you need me to repeat the question, or?
No, I think I got it. My vision for the town, there were things that, a lot of things that drew me to this town. And upon being here, I kind of, little low-key kind of life, but I met a lot of really, really fine people. And I know that a lot of them, well, all of them, are very passionate about the town. And I would just like to be part of the present and the future success of this town. I think that the reason why people have stayed here so long, and the reason why people continue to come here, is due to the charm and the character that this town has and the uniqueness. And I'd just like to see that continue.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
Well, my vision for Green Mountain Falls is keeping it small and remembering our history. I think one of the first things that I would like to see, it needs to be like an ordinance, is everybody needs to read Dorothy Kahn's history book about Green Mountain Falls. And just, for me, it's about the history, it's about the people that I knew growing up that were my grandparent people, and remembering them and respecting them and loving them, and just not spoiling where that is, but also we need to be progressive and looking forward, but not too excessively. And I can't think of the right term that I want to use, but we need to stay small, we need to keep our atmosphere here what it is, but we still also need to look to the future and plan for that. And basically what my brother always tells me, my brother Felipe says, don't spoil my Mayberry. And that's why everyone moves here. But then, sometimes people move here and then they want to change it to wherever they moved from, and that's not us. We need to keep our own identity.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Moving on to the next question, Mr. Quinn, we're going to start with you. What is your position on public safety, and do you think that Green Mountain Falls should maintain their own marshal's department, or should that function be turned over to the El Paso County Sheriff?
Well, obviously, public safety is very, very important to any place that you would ever go. I think that when you have localized public safety, they are much more invested in their capacities. I think that there's a more intimate relationship with the community. I know when you look at fire departments and police departments, generally they engage the public beyond just the capacity that they're hired for. They're an integral part of the community, and I think that's important. As far as the marshal's office goes, I do believe that we could benefit from local marshals. I think that a lot of people, at least that I've interacted with, have shown that they feel that maybe it wasn't done correctly or what have you, and I don't really know the answer to that, and that's kind of why I'm applying for this position, so that I can get inside there and see exactly what's happened and verify that it was a good decision. Maybe it was, and if that's the case, then that's the direction that we'll go, if that's the direction the citizens want. This is a position where I am beholden to the citizens. It is not my opinion, and so I'd like to be reactive to whatever it is that the town desires. But I do support the local marshal.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Peterson, do you need the question repeated?
No. I think my position on public safety and maintaining the marshal's department, there's a very long history there. And I know I was one of the people that was very upset when it got changed from marshal to police, because that seemed really drastic to me, because it's like, no, we don't have police here. This is a small town, we have a marshal. I agree with the need of having someone local, someone that the people know, But also, I understand that the town does have budget constraints regarding that. The decision and the conversation hasn't fully happened yet, and I think people need to remember that it's not a final decision, one way or the other. I do believe we need somebody local here, but I think we also need to find somebody that's the right fit for our community, and we need to stay within our budget.
Thank you. Ms. Newberry?
I think it's an interesting question, and I think it's a question that has been taken all over the community in many different directions. Right now, I will say this, the town is being covered by El Paso County Sheriff's Office. Now, the interesting thing with having El Paso County here is they have always done the heavy lifting, if you will, of any sort of marshal's department. And by that, I mean, they've always done the investigations, they do transport. They've always been the backup to the marshal's office that we've had here. So we haven't introduced someone who is unfamiliar with our town. Their entity, their group certainly is familiar with us, does know us here. We've also had a good partnership with Teller County, and they back up El Paso County. If the pass is closed, Teller has stepped up to say, yes, indeed, we will help you. But moving on to what I think we need. What I think we need in a marshal's office, first of all, we need to all step back because we have a minute to take a breath and say, what is going to be the best fit for our town? Who's it going to be? How is this job going to be structured? The marshal's office, indeed, is not gone. Those jobs are still on the books. And this gives us a little break in time to say, what is going to be the best fit? Who is going to fit for Green Mountain Falls? What does this face need to be? Indeed, we've had a workshop, and the answers were pretty much 50-50. So we need to really explore where we're responsible fiscally, what we need, and what we want.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson, we'll start with you with our next question. Green Mountain Falls Economic Sustainability Project of 2006 and 2011 identified potential strategies for funding options for the town. What short-term and long-term strategies will you facilitate if elected?
Very good question, because to tell you the truth, I'm really not 100% familiar with both of the 2006 and the 2007, besides when I took them, you know. I think strategies for funding, short and long term both, we really need to be fiscally responsible with our budget. And when it's budget preparation time, I don't think it's necessarily a line by line item. What can we remove? What can we add? Line by line, but overall department wise, we need to look at both short term and long term, because there are some areas that, you know, we may need a couple of $1,000s just to put in the kitty to anticipate farther down the road. Also, I think that pursuing the grant opportunities that are made available to us on both short term and long term, you know, we had a number of monies that were made available to us recently due to the flooding and the emergencies that happened, and that was wonderful, but that was emergency. And maybe pursuing more of what's out there just to find some money to do things outside of the realm of, you know, being proactive instead of reactive.
Thank you. Ms. Newberry?
Pursuing grants really is something that, oh, believe it or not, I enjoy. It's filling in those blanks. I actually like doing it. We've had some great successes here, some things that I'm very proud of, and I certainly would plan to pursue again. Great Outdoors Colorado has been very generous and helpful to us in terms of things like parks. They were great with Dick got the first one down here for the playground at the Gazebo Lake. I got the one for the tennis court, the basketball court, and the pool fence. Like I said, I do have a passion to pursue that for the other playground that needs to be done. Additionally, there is money out there for us to get on the lake. I don't know if anybody realizes it as much as I do, but the lake needs some loving. And there's money out there, but most grants are 75-25, and we need to pursue exactly how we're going to get to our 25%. What else is out there? There's Department of Local Affairs. They've been great helping us with roads and bridges. The PPRTA, we do have money that we're looking to take care of the widening and paving of Belvedere, and that's a concern for a lot of citizens, needs to be done. There are community development block grants out there that comes from El Paso County, and ideally, not tomorrow, but maybe the next day, I'd love to see some community development to help revitalize our downtown and help with our economy.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Well, I have read the documents that you're referencing, and I did notice that there a lot of the responses and a lot of the direction, especially in the not the economic sustainability, but the other guy, the comprehensive plan. There were lots of focus on public safety, both fire and law enforcement, and there were a lot of favorable responses in there as far as how the residents saw the job that they were doing, and I think to enable to sustain the current and future demands that the town will have, I think that since we just had a mill levy increase, and then I think the perception is that people look around and to see the marshal's office go away right after we had agreed to increase our funding to the town, I think that kind of might hit some people the wrong way. And we have to keep in mind that property values will go up. You know, those dollar amounts will increase, and hopefully we'll keep up with inflation and the things that we need to do around here. Long term, I think we need to be fiscally prudent with our budgets, react to the citizens' desires and needs, and I understand that there's a lot of pursuit and grants and things like that, but that is not a long-term solution. I think that we need to be self-sufficient and find ways to work within our budgets.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Moving on, the next question is sort of a two-part question, and we will start with you, Ms. Newberry. Should revenue projections be forecasted at a decrease of 10 to 20%? What would your actions be? And the second part of that is to flip that. On the other side, should the revenue projections be forecasted at a 10 to 20% increase, how would you manage the increase? So in essence, decrease, increase, 10 to 20%, what would your actions be on either side of the equation?
Well, unfortunately, as I have sat on the board since 2006, revenue actually has declined or remained flat for that entire time. Let me tell you, that is no fun to come to a budget meeting, workshop with all the employees and say, I don't know what we're going to do. The best thing in those circumstances is to really look and see what is the most responsible thing we can do. What do we have to do first? I don't know if it's any different from anybody else's home budget where you get that blow and you think, what can we cut? What do we have to do? We've worked very hard at maintaining the same level of service, but we've had to become very creative at it. And let me give all the credit in the world to the staff who have been amazing at outreach to other communities. That's actually helped us a lot. I don't know that people realize how many things have come in due to the connections that the staff has. I mean, that's critical. To have that working relationship with staff and with the board and to be able to sit down and say, what are we going to do? That's critical. my hope is, even if we see that kind of decrease, we can think creatively within that budget. Hope we never do. We're kind of flat right now. And actually, we did get a mill levy increase, but all our house values went down, so we stayed level. Now, if we get an increase, I'll talk as fast as I can. The most prudent thing to do is to make sure that we're meeting all of our bills first, like we all do in our budgets. But, my gosh, the passion, we need to give at least a little raise to our employees who have not seen an increase in their salaries in the last 3 years. Not the full-time people, not the part-time people. They volunteered to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Newberry.
I've got more.
Mr. Quinn, do you need the question repeated?
Thank you. Regarding the revenue projections, if we did see a 10 to 20% decrease in revenues, I think if you refer to the comprehensive plan, there were strategies for that. There was references to exploring annexations along Highway 24, and I think maybe we could do that. Expanding the service area would also it would tax our services a little more, but we have potential for increase in revenues, and also we also identified in the comprehensive plan was pursuit. Well, it was pursuit of non-residential property because the tax rate on non-residential is substantially higher than residential. And I think that if we encourage business to come here, as is outlined in the comprehensive plan, I think that we could maintain the current levels. If the revenue projections were to increase, I think that at that time that we could address more of the wants versus the needs of the community, without relying on outside money. I think that, of course, we should take care of our employees as well. They do a fine job for us. And maybe we can pursue, like I said, some of the things that the residents would like to see in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Peterson.
Well, if we're not wanting to be redundant, mine is going to be really quick to answer here. I think it's just prioritize. Either way, we need to look and we need to see what are the areas that might be a little inflated that it would be okay to decrease a little bit if there was a decrease, and definitely with an increase, we need to reinstate to the areas that were taken from first. But I do agree with compensating our employees as well.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn, the next question is coming to you. Please list your top 3 priorities for the incoming Green Mountain Falls trustees.
Top 3 priorities. I think first of all, I think that with the new board seated, that we should pursue training as far as proper procedures for town meetings, for interactions with our departments and each other. I think that I do know that was identified as well in the comprehensive plan. That's something that the residents would like to see, so that we can work together better and do our jobs in a more effective manner. The second thing I would say is that we really need to pursue more, I don't want to say transparency and all that stuff, but we need to pursue more access for the public to be able to know what's going on in town. I know that I know in my personal experience, it's hard to find, easily just go to the internet and see, just like most places that I've been, you can typically go and pull up all sorts of information on municipality, and I think that really goes a long way for residents understanding what's occurring in town. This is 2014. I don't see why we shouldn't invest a little bit in the outreach to the community. I know that the community wants it, and they would definitely respect that 100%. The third thing I think, I think that we need to clarify our priorities, go through the budget, have a little tighter oversight on expenditures. There may be a lot of opportunity there for us to save a little money or, you know, possibly identify where maybe we shouldn't focus as hard and put our energies into something different.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. You mentioned technology. That gives me an opening to mention we are being streamed live this evening for those that are out there as well. So, we are being streamed live on YouTube tonight. So, Ms. Peterson, your top 3 priorities.
My top 3 priorities, I agree that training is first and foremost. That's something that's just incredibly important no matter where you are. And I can't emphasize how much I've learned in the last year with regard to what's involved in working in a municipality and understanding the laws, understanding the regulations, understanding the rules. You know, there are numerous workshops that are available, and I would say, you know, just take advantage of whatever. We have a wealth of knowledge here with our clerk. And just, I would encourage any new person or anyone anywhere that has any question to go to the source. And that leads into my second priority, which would be internal communication with the board. There are some things that legally you cannot do, but there are a lot of things that you can as far as better communication and community outreach. Better communication with the community in general, and again, making it available. I agree that we need better internet things, but it needs to be official. It can't be just coming from left and right. We need to have more official areas and official ways for people to communicate and making our things available, but also just helping the community in general to understand when you've got a question, who do you go ask? Go to the source. Chris is a wonderful source, and a lot of times people seem hesitant to call and ask the question there first. So we just doing a better job of communicating and outreach.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Newberry.
Actually, we're all fairly close on most of these. Yeah, the first thing that needs to be done for a new board is training. We have some great resources. Our own attorney has said, love to come down, work with the new board, talk about the statutes that need to be followed. Super. We also have great contacts with Colorado Municipal League. This is what they do. They talk about the rules and regs. They talk about the why. They talk about the workshops that they have. We've actually attended some workshops just to educate ourselves in not only where we are here, but how we reach all our other communities. The second thing I would like to do, sit down with our clerk, look at our calendar, and set up a quarterly workshop for everyone to come in and actually everyone in the town that wants to come in and have a workshop, a time and a place to discuss things. Maybe they just want to know, maybe there's an issue. Maybe the summer people want to come in with different ideas. And that's different than the board meeting, which is more formal and structured. It would be a little looser and a little more give and take. And I think a lot of people would be very excited about that. And thirdly, as far as what we would do on the board, I would love to have a workshop with the board and talk about goal setting. I mean, it isn't the Newberry show, it's the town show. What are people's specific goals? What do they want to see done? It's the best thing about having 7 equal people on a board. They all have ideas, they all have things to say, everybody has things to bring to the table, and everybody has work that they can do.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. This will be directed to you first, Ms. Peterson. It's a 2-part question. Are there unhealthy conditions existing in or around the gazebo lake? And if you concur, what would your solution be to addressing these conditions?
Okay. The unhealthy conditions in or around Gazebo Lake, the only thing that I'm really aware of is just when there's excessive runoff. There's a lot of things that end up in the lake, and you can all tell because it just looks icky and gicky for quite a while afterwards. But I think that is going to be alleviated with the construction that we have now, the project we have now with that, what is it called, diverter? I don't know, the thingy that they're building over there. And I'm sorry, what was the second half? Again.
If you concurred, what would your solution be to addressing this?
Well, my solution, I think there would need to be some study done. You know, one of the things that I've noticed with the lake, and I don't know if this has anything to do with anything at all, except for I'm old and have been here forever, but I'm not an old timer, is when the Corps of Engineers came in the 90s and built the path, the boardwalk, it seemed to change the flow in the lake, and the lake just doesn't seem to have as much flow in it now as it used to. So it maybe that would be something in the future to look at, just to reinstate better flow in general. So there's fresh coming in, because there used to be two different outlets coming in when there was the path in the middle and water flowed from both sides out to the end. And that doesn't seem to happen anymore, but that's just my personal opinion. It's not educated in any way. It's just what I see.
Thank you. Ms. Newberry?
It's kind of a two-part answer, because there's conditions within the lake and there's conditions around the lake. The lake itself, the water itself, yeah, it doesn't look good when there's runoff. The problem we have right now is the lake builds up a certain amount of silt. All things being great and grants being gotten, we really do need to dredge that out to make those conditions healthier for the fish. But right now, the big catch is the dredging. It's okay, it's expensive, but it's the hauling and the disposal of that product that's within the lake that has to be looked at. It's very expensive. But as far as the water itself, doesn't look good when it's running off. Not dangerous for people's health. The other question, what's around the lake, what I have been hearing people say is they don't like the excessive amount of goose poo. Now, I'm with Ann. I saw Ann here earlier. I do love the geese. I think they're beautiful, and I like to see them come in. However, we have been negligent to our wildlife by allowing people to feed them. You know, you want to feed them, you love to feed them. It's like the squirrels you feed, and then you find they're going into your roof and having babies. You don't want that. You really want to be responsible, let the geese forage for themselves, let that natural process happen so we don't have an excessive amount. Whether it's healthy or not, I'm not the health expert to answer here. Whether it's not aesthetically pleasing, probably not so much. We need to do a better job of educating our public that we're not doing these animals any favors by feeding them.
Like a don't feed the bear sign?
Yeah.
Don't feed the geese.
Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, the gazebo lake now, I've always loved it since I first seen it, and I have fished in it. Don't eat anything out of it, but I have fished in it. I do see opportunity there to make improvements that would, well, first of all, I do see a few sources of pollution there. One being the road that drains directly into the lake. Another would be the inflow into the lake. I think that there are opportunities to do things. That I realize that we're doing some projects there. I'm really not aware of it, and that ties back into more community outreach. I've asked people, and I would expect that citizens would understand what was happening there, and maybe not. But anyway, regarding the turbulent flows that enter into the lake when we have excessive runoff and things like that, there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. But for the normal flows that occur most of the year, I think there's opportunities for, say, some vortex type manhole systems which will collect silt. They would require maintenance to remove the silt and debris that would build up in the bottom of it, but they wouldn't make it into the lake. So I think once we reach the point where we can go ahead and clean up all the silt deposits and everything that's in the bottom, and I understand there's challenges with the hazardous waste that would be in there, but I think if we employed those types of approaches, and I think that we would have a longer term between the lake silting out. I think that we could also possibly look into outreach to either professional or environmental organizations that might, offer us some ideas and and maybe even some assistance without necessarily costing a whole lot of money. I think there's a lot of expertise out there that they may grant us for free.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Moving on to the next question, Ms. Newberry, this goes to you. How would you address sand and gravel from the roads washing into Catamount Creek?
Washing into Catamount Creek. Now, how would I address that? I haven't even thought of this question, so let me think here a minute. Part of what we have is natural erosion up here. It's just going to happen. But I will say this. I know that our road crew works very hard to make sure that the roads are maintained, to make sure that we have less erosion. They additionally have been working very hard with mag chloride to make sure, and I think people think of mag chloride as just something that keeps your roads from freezing up. Actually, it helps a lot keeping things where they're supposed to go, keeping gravel on the road where it's supposed to be and not in the creek where we don't want it. I'm not an engineer, so if there's a more complicated answer out there, I'm not the one to ask, but I certainly know the right people to ask.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Well, I obviously that's a very natural occurrence for things to run off into the creeks, especially out in this type of environment. But beyond the natural flows of things, I think that we could do a little better job with our road gradings. I think that we could employ some strategies to direct the runoff so that they're maybe given a chance to slow down and drop a lot of that the particulates that are suspended in the water. For instance, adding some more side ditching along the roads. I know on my road, the grade of the road kind of swings like this, so a lot of times the water runs straight across and it causes a lot of gullies. And I think, if we looked at ways to channelize that and direct it into a place where it would have the chance to dissipate its energy, it would drop out a lot of that stuff, and you get a lot more cleaner water into the natural streams. And also, I think if we maybe we could identify some opportunities to increase vegetation along the banks, that as well would help to clean up the water before it hit the natural course there.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Peterson?
Okay, you guys are both so smart. So this is where you're going to see I'm totally not a politician. And I don't claim to be one. Basically, to address the sand and gravel washing into Catamount Creek, I don't know if I've ever been aware that it's a really big concern or a big issue. If anyone had any problems or concerns, they are more than capable of calling me or emailing me, or I've even got my work fax on my contact information. But regarding any of this, my first thing would be to call Rob. He's the guy in charge. I don't know what to do. He's the one that does. So that would be what I would do to find out what to do.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Quinn, next question. We'll start with you. We mentioned earlier a 2006 survey. And 86% of the respondents in 2006 who took that survey said they did not want the character of Green Mountain Falls to change. Describe for us your interpretation of the character of Green Mountain Falls and how you would maintain the character while planning for fiscally solvent future.
Well, I think that a lot of the character of the town is its natural beauty, and the maintenance and upkeep of that, I think, is minimal when you look at the totality of the budget. I think I do know that there are a lot of organizations that are very passionate about trails and things of that nature, and I think that their work that they're doing, which is great work, would continue. I think that because the town feels in such a manner that, you know, we have an opportunity for a lot of volunteering to help supplement that kind of labor-intensive stuff that may be required. A lot of the charm is, as I understand from things that I've read and whatnot, is just the old-time character of this town. You know, a lot of people come here for outdoor activities, be it the lake, be it hiking, any of those things, and I think we should encourage that and encourage people who utilize those things to help us to maintain and keep it the way it is. And judging by the numbers on the survey that you got, I think that there would be a lot of enthusiasm for that.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
Well, this reflects on my opening statement. I think to maintain a plan for remaining fiscally solvent and maintaining our character is honoring our heritage. Remembering everyone that was here before that made this town what it is, and honoring them, remembering those principles, keeping it small. I think that's where we start. Volunteering is wonderful if you can get people to do it. You know, it's just one of those things that everybody likes to show up. It's like what is the story of the little red hen? Like, who will help me make my bread? Nobody, but everybody will come help eat it. And that's not meant to be derogatory. It's just, it's the reality of what it is. And anyone who's volunteered on any type of organization knows that. You know, the excitement can be there, and you can do anything and everything you can to promote it, but there's a limited number of people that really have a heart to do the real work, and the time sometimes to do the real work. So just honoring our history and remembering that.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Newberry?
You know, I think part of what makes Green Mountain Falls, what makes us us, is the celebration of our rugged individualism. It sounds really cliche, but I think people are really proud of being from Green Mountain Falls and being independent. And yeah, we live in the mountains. Yeah, it's beautiful, but we're okay up here. Yeah, so I get a little more snow than you downtown. It's okay. I'm proud of it. I love living up here. I love living in the mountains. Of course, I don't know anything else. It's my home. But we need to remember that we don't want to be a cookie cutter of everywhere else. We are our own town. Let's be who we are. Let's celebrate that. Let's honor the history. And I think we've been doing a pretty darn good job saying, okay, here's our budget. Let's work in it. We'll make it as good as we can make it. But let's keep remembering, this is our home. Let's be proud of our home.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Ms. Peterson. Green Mountain Falls hosts fun activities throughout the year that include Bronc Day, Easter egg hunt, Green Box, and you all need to tell me what that is later, and the Winter Festival, which fosters community pride. How would you foster the community if elected as town official?
Oh gosh. That's kind of a setup question for me to go
That's
first.
kind of
So, basically, anyone that knows me, and especially all of my friends that I grew up with that don't live here anymore, when I tell them about some of the things that are going on, it's like, you know, they know I'm Miss Green Mountain Falls. Bronc Day wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mother's intervention when the Chamber of Commerce disbanded. My mother was the community organizer who did the Halloween parties and the Easter egg hunts, helping with the Yule Festival, which is what it used to be, again, prior to the Chamber disbanding, for years and years and years. So that is instilled in me. That's just part of my fabric. The best I can do is get out and promote, let people know what's going on, encourage them to come, and let them know that it's going to be fun, fun, fun. Greenbox, I've been affiliated with them from the inception. So I've done a lot of volunteer work with Greenbox. You know, I volunteer a lot of my time to all of these different activities. So all I could do is say, come on, it'll be fun. You know, we're excited about the car show and we're excited about Bronc Day because we just found out we can have horsey patrol. So just by being able to just be myself and promote it and remind everybody what's going on. And my girlfriend who does my hair, we've known her since school forever. And I have to remind her so she books herself out on the Saturdays that things are happening so she doesn't work so she can come up. And that's what I do with anyone I know. I just remind them, hey, this is going on.
Thank you. Ms. Newberry?
I got so enthralled with your answer.
The question
You
is,
didn't think of your own, huh?
how would you foster the community if elected as town official?
How would I foster? Well, you know, I have to agree with Margaret. The spirit of following what we're doing is terrific. We have a lot of good activities. I like to give a nice shout out to the chamber who've worked really hard at getting different events. Making sure we still have the concerts at the lake, making sure that everything is family friendly and people want to come up here. You know, we've had our challenges lately, and we're still going to have some challenges. But let's remember that we want to celebrate Green Mountain Falls. Our friends down the hill want to come up and celebrate, and even Woodland would like to come down and foster that community spirit. We hear a lot of people from Woodland say, you know what? You've got the cutest little town. What are you doing? I think promote is always good. Our chamber's doing a good job of that. Maybe one of the goals of the future trustees should be, you know what? I'm going to take over and I'll have a nice promotions site that people can access and see what's going on. I am not the queen of what are the great ideas. I think that's Margaret as far as what are the volunteer opportunities for festivities. But we have some great things coming, especially with people like Greenbox coming in here. They really think outside the box. They really have a passion for wanting to make Green Mountain Falls maybe more of an art community, something different, something that really can sparkle up here. I am excited about that.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Well, I like all of the ideas I've heard. I do think that we could utilize what we have, which would be all of our parks, obviously the lake and gazebo. I like the idea of bringing in additional events to kind of spread it out. I mean, when I first got here, all I heard about Bronc Day, and it's a really cool thing. But I think that there's other opportunity out there to go ahead and kind of start new traditions, perhaps. We could encourage and support our businesses to pursue their own ideas. Maybe we can workshop that, come up with something. You know, maybe there's some ideas out there. We can engage the citizens, whether they want to see. We have an opportunity with our summer citizens. Maybe we could create a new, opportunity for like an end of summer festival or something like that. Something that we could get everybody, all of our summer residents together and have an opportunity to kind of hang out and say goodbye before they're gone for the winter. And also, I have engaged citizens. That's going to tie it too good, but yeah, I think there's a lot of smart and thoughtful people in this town, and I think that if we engage them a little bit, engage support to their ideas, I think that we could definitely come up with some opportunity for additional events throughout the year. I think people like to come up here. They enjoy the weather, they enjoy the coolness in summer, and we have a real opportunity to increase commerce in the town through that, and also to promote our town.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Moving on to our next question. This will start with you, Ms. Newberry. Please explain your interpretation of the Sunshine Law and how it relates to calling executive sessions.
Sunshine Law, for people who aren't acquainted with that, was introduced in the Colorado legislature so that the majority of communications are accessible to all citizens all the time. You'll notice that when we have meetings, even when we come out of executive session, votes are public. Votes are always public. There cannot be a vote taken in executive session. Executive sessions are called specifically for the purposes discussing personnel matters. The importance of a personnel matter being an executive session, you want to protect the integrity of your individual employees. I'm very passionate about making sure the employees are treated fairly. When you're talking about somebody's employment, that's a very sensitive subject, and it really is something personal to them that if everything was held in a public session, could damage an individual, and that's not fair. We need to be fair and right to our employees. The other circumstances that an executive session is called is to receive advice from an attorney. Now, quite often, you receive advice because there's things like negotiation for purchasing land. Now, you all know if you've bought a home or bought a car that you might have your dollar figure in front of you, but do you want that to go out so that then who you're buying it from can say, oh, no, I know you want this property. We need to have a chance to speak with an attorney, but I guarantee you every vote that's taken is a public vote in the public record.
Thank you, Ms. Newberry. Mr. Quinn?
Sunshine laws are very popular. I think that citizens really appreciate knowing the ins and outs and going on. For those that are interested, now granted, not everyone is, but you know, geeks like me, sometimes we like to know exactly how we got to this decision. And as it relates to executive sessions, you know, I'm no expert on this type of thing, but I would think that we would try to limit executive sessions as much as possible. I do agree that if there's any kind of legal counsel or if there's some work product in progress that maybe is sensitive and, you know, before choosing a direction, you might want to consult each other in the realm of a board meeting if something comes up or something like that. But I think that the best way to govern is out in the open. I realize there's no votes taken or anything like that. It's just a lot of discussion, but I think sometimes, well, as often as possible, I think that the public should be granted as much access to information as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Peterson?
Well, I first learned of the Sunshine Law when I was appointed last February, and it's a little different than Sunset. I'm familiar with Sunset because of the industry I'm in, and every few years, the regulatory agencies have a meeting to see if they're going to still keep that law open or not, or keep regulating that thing. And this is completely different. The first thing that happened once I was appointed was I had an opportunity to sit with Chris. She gave me a binder that was like this thick with all of the town's ordinances and all of the state statute things. And after that meeting, I was scared to death because it's like, oh my God, I can't talk to anyone about anything, because she really emphasizes the importance of the Sunshine Law and understanding it's open records. Yes, people need to know what's going on, but also understanding that if us three here were on board and we had a discussion, it would have to be an open public discussion, you know, and those are the type of things that you need to understand and you need to know. And that, in conjunction with executive sessions, I think there is a need for those sometimes, and especially for people that, like myself sometimes, because I have to do my research, that don't completely understand the law as it pertains to that matter. You need to know, and it's client-attorney privilege. You don't want to go to your lawyer and have the world televised when you're talking something personal. And that's how I equate an executive session. It doesn't mean that it stays quiet. Once you're out and it becomes public record, it's public record. But you have to understand the Colorado Revised Statutes, and you have to follow the law, and you have to understand that there are protocols involved.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Moving on to the next question, we'll start, Mr. Quinn, with you. On behalf of the citizens of Green Mountain Falls, how would you propose the village trustees and mayor work effectively together?
How would I propose that we work effectively together? Well, I think the most important thing is to have civility and respect. And to understand that, you know, as a trustee, if I'm sitting on a board, I am not, what I personally feel doesn't matter. What I am doing is I am representing my constituents. In this case, all of the trustees have the same constituents. So we should be in some sort of agreement on a lot of this stuff. So I think to act in an open manner and to respect what we're hearing from our constituents, and I think that it's important to have, tying back to our technology, to have a centralized place where people can interact with the board as a whole versus individually. I think that a group email that is open to the public might be a good option, so that no one is seeing something that someone else is not. And you know, we all represent. If one person has an issue, all 7 of us are supposed to be there to represent that person, or for that issue, or for whatever it is that's occurring. So I think that, again, I think if we all understand that we're representing the same people with the same wants and needs, and it's all communicated at once to the board as a whole, I think that we could be a lot more effective in how we address the issues, how we come to decisions, and a lot of thoughtful reflection on what it is that we plan to do.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Peterson,
Okay, could you repeat?
Question.
The citizens?
on behalf of the citizens of Green Mountain Falls, how would you propose the town trustees and mayor work effectively together?
Okay. I think the first thing involved in working effectively is communication. And being able to be open and being able to, even if there's a conflict, being able to say, you know, I didn't like how that happened. I want to talk to you about it. And not feeling like you're not being listened to. The other part of that too, though, as far as working effectively and having the civility that you need to have, having the professionalism that you need to have, it's just like a coworker. You know, this isn't a paid position, but this is a job we're doing, and we need to have that respect. Understanding, having training, getting behind a vote, even if it's something that I don't agree with. Ethics say once it's done, it's done. So even if I don't agree with it, it's not my place to voice that once the vote is done. We need to get behind it, we need to back it, and we need to just leave it at that. You know, there are other things that can happen. I mean, 6 months from now, we may find that we did something that was really, really silly and we need to maybe amend it, but you have to give it time and you have to find that out. But there needs to be that communication and everyone working together, again, on understanding the laws and protocols that are involved.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Newberry.
I think I'd follow right along with what Margaret's saying. You know, training is just an essential part here. Sometimes it's training you can receive from others. Sometimes you need to actually go out there and get some of this training for yourself. Part of it, and Margaret's completely right, I learned early on that you don't always get your way in a vote. Sometimes you lose. But it's very important to then step back and say, look, the majority said they needed this, they wanted this, they must have a reason to do it. It is your obligation, and it's your training by Colorado Municipal League that says, step back, get behind the board. If you don't, you can become divisive. The board needs to function together. I tell you what, everybody I sat on the board with, you know what, we've probably had a disagreement, we've been on another side of the vote. But at the end of the day, we could compromise and say, wait, you know, this isn't how it should be. And that's how a board should function. At the end of the day, you might still be mad when you go home, but the next day you go, that's the board vote, I'm behind the board, that's the responsible thing to do. Communication is key, but I have to say, you really can't have a group email to all of the board members because that is a violation of the Sunshine Law. The reason being is a group email is seen as a public meeting. Unfortunately, if there's only 7 of us on that, we're meeting amongst ourselves without the citizens. That is not fair and is not correct. You know, respect is earned, respect is easily lost, and I think you need to go into the board saying, I'm gonna go into this with a clear head, go into the training and move forward.
Thank you. We're at the end of the prepared questions that were given to me prior to the event, but we do have a member of the press with us this evening. And I feel at such a loss because you're with the Mountain Jackpot and I am just at a loss for the name right now. Beth. Beth, is there a question you would like to pose to the candidates?
Is there anything that has not yet been discussed that you would like people to know?
And Ms. Peterson, we will start with you.
I don't know, I think this has been a really good, well-rounded group of questions. I think we've covered a lot of territory. And I really didn't know what to expect coming in, because like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm a regular person, so that's where it is.
Thank you, Ms. Newberry.
Yeah, I have to say, great questions, interesting questions, things that have held my feet to the fire a couple of times. I'm thankful for that. I don't know what else to say except really thank you for the thoughtful communications that came. I could tell a lot of thought went into this. What I would like to add is, well, only about me. I like to answer people's questions. If you have a question for me, I wish you would ask it. Feel free to ask it. If it's something I don't know, I will look it up. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. You know, I will tell you right out. I don't know, I'll look it up.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
It was just a really open-ended. Is there anything additional to what's already been talked about that you'd like to discuss, that you'd like people to know about your intentions in running for this office?
No, I think it was a very, again, thoughtful range of questions. I had really no idea what to expect. And I'm rather nervous, sitting up here. So I can't really think of anything.
Especially with the world watching, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you. We did collect a few questions from the audience. Two of those questions had to do with the marshal's office, but we did address that in question number 2 when we did ask that. One of the questions we would like to start, Ms. Newberry, we'll start with you, is what is the pyramid of accountability for the town council?
The pyramid of accountability, it sounds like a phrase I should know from human resources, but I don't. What I would say though, I think what this question is getting at is how is the board accountable to the town? I would assume that that's what that means. The board functions as 7 equal people. The board functions because we all have the same vote. Now, if by accountability they mean how does the information be put out there, number one thing we have is the legal record in the minutes. That is the legal record. The reason that every item is not in there because so-and-so said and so-and-so said is because those are action items, and that's very important. I'm spitballing here at the accountability pyramid, but I think that's the number one thing. You are responsible to answer what has come before you in this agenda. You have to be accountable for everything that's brought at that meeting and at the next meeting. And if you're open and honest and the minutes reflect that, I think that's the direction that you need to go.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn.
Pyramid of accountability. I think what they're referring to is the accountability of the elected officials. Now, we are a 7-member board. We will be a 7-member board, and we make very critical decisions on behalf of our citizens. And I think that we should be open and available to account for those decisions that we make, as a whole. And I think that we also owe a lot of strict, not strict oversight, but a little more oversight and a little tighter, keeping of, records and decisions. And, you know, if there is an issue, because I realize there's a lot of strife in the town, and if there is an issue with an employee or with a program or an activity that's going on in the town, I think that they look to us to be accountable, and we should have an answer. And it should be the same answer, because we all made the same decision. And I think that any kinds of things that impact our citizens, such as expenditures of money, you know, things of that nature, that we should be very very prudent in how we account for those things, so that when we are addressed or asked about the goings on in the town, that we each as a board are consistent in our answers, and how we can explain how these things came about, why they're occurring, things of that nature. And I think that as the board, we are accountable to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Peterson?
Well, this is a completely foreign quote to me. The first thing that came to my mind was the food pyramid. Sorry. But also, I'm also taking a little parenting class, because I'm raising my grandson. It's a lot different now than it was when I raised my kids and when I was raised. They do it now. And there's a little pyramid in that too. And basically, I'm on like chapter 3, so I can give you 3 things to build the pyramid. But just, to me, it's like building the foundation. You know, the pyramid goes up, and each section builds onto another. And being accountable, we need to have our foundation. And again, the foundation is training and knowledge and understanding, staying within the law. One of the things that I always joke with my school owner about is, Department of Ed doesn't make any sense at all. It's not logical, but it's not supposed to be. You're just supposed to follow the regs. And it's the same with the municipality. It doesn't have to make sense, but you have to follow the regs. The next step would be to fill your toolbox. Again, training, understanding, communication, doing the things that you need to do so that you can effectively work. Positive reinforcement. It's a lot better to tell somebody 5 times you're doing something really good, but being able to do it without adding a little but. You want to keep it positive and just reinforcing. And I think accountability, that's where we all are, no matter where we are in life. If we're a trustee, as a person, as a parent, in any way, we need to have that foundation in that toolbox.
Thank you.
And grains and vegetables.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn, we're going to start with you with the next question. I'm going to modify here just a bit. We've talked about the small town feel and character in earlier questions, and we've also talked about the marshal's office as well. But can you address the issue of potential removal of the pool?
Okay. I wasn't aware there was a potential removal of the pool.
And that may be what your answer is, that you're.
I was not aware of that, but in looking at the budgets, I can see that obviously we don't make money on the pool, and maybe that's where that comes from. I really don't know. That would seem, if you looked at it purely from a fiscal point of view, maybe that's where that's coming from. I don't know. I know that being new in town and moving here and thinking, oh wow, this community pool, this is great, and it's the town pool, and I'm going to go down there, and I just found it rather expensive, and I kind of found that this is just my own experiences, that being as that my taxes help pay for that maybe I could get in there a little cheaper than anyone else, but these are just my own thoughts. I mean, I don't know. But honestly, I haven't heard anything about community pool. I really don't know that much about it. I haven't visited it, so I don't really know.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Peterson?
Well, this is a subject near and dear to my heart, because obviously my dad, when he was the trustee, he was the person in charge of the pool. I grew up swimming in the pool. When I was a teenager, it's been long enough, it's been over 35 years. I actually, when I was a teenager, had a key because he got tired of all my friends jumping the fence and tearing the fence up. He said, just let him come ask me and I'll let him in. But it's part of our history. It's part of who we are. It's heated. But anybody that's been in it knows that it's freezing. Your goosebumps will really get big in there. As far as the potential removal, the only thing that I can think that this addresses, or that this even comes from, is the rumblings that have been out there forever and ever and ever. I've heard them all my life. The rumblings of unincorporating Green Mountain Falls. If that was to happen, we probably wouldn't have a pool because there wouldn't be anyone to maintain it, and there wouldn't be the budget or the funds available. I don't know if that's what generated this question, but that's where my mind goes, and there have always been those rumblings, always. The majority of the people, I do not believe, want to see that happen in any way, but there's always been a little tiny rumble about that. Again, the pool is part of who we are. When you're a kid growing up in this town, there's not a lot to do. Hanging out at the pool, going for hikes, going down to the lake, that's what you do, and it's part of what makes us who we are. It's a really, really unique thing to be able to raise your kids here and know that if they go outside nowadays, that they have places to go and things to do.
Thank you. Ms. Newberry?
Well, the pool is essentially a benign operation. We have a budget for it, and it breaks even at the end of the year. Admission right now is $5 all day. So if you're here as a kid or here as a summer person, not a bad deal all day. Additionally, you can get punch cards and you can get passes. So that brings the cost down a little bit more. It is the oldest pool in use in Colorado. It is part of our history. That has been here a long time. I think it would be a shame to lose it. Yeah, it takes some upkeep. People have to look after it. People have to look after everything that gets older. I know that. But it would be a shame to lose something that really essentially doesn't cost us money. We put money into it, that money comes back. I think to take away an opportunity for our young people, an opportunity for those of us who like to get out and exercise in the morning, I think would be a real shame. I think that'd be a crying shame to get rid of something that isn't hurting us.
Thank you, Ms.
Did you say exercise? Oh, that's what you're supposed to do there.
That concludes our questions at this time. So what we will do is end with our closing statements. Mr. Quinn, we're going to start with you. You have 2 minutes to wrap up, and know that you're speaking to the World Wide Web through YouTube and also to the audience that is here as well to talk about your candidacy for trustee.
Great. Well, I'm compelled to just serve my community, and I think that I try to be thoughtful and responsive to whatever it is that, obviously I'll be representing, I don't know how many people there, 900 people.
606 is the
606.
census number.
Yeah,
But we
I
actually have
thought it was bigger than that. But no, with the election that was coming up, and I took that as an opportunity to step up, because I didn't, there's a lot of strife and things like that. I'm kind of impartial. I don't have a whole lot of history here or know about all of the things that are happening around town. There's this guy's mad at that guy, or I don't know, I just want to make sure that the place where I live, where I'm, I have my family, that it's safe and secure, and, there's a sense of harmony and community around me. I think that the town deserves it and the citizens deserve it, and if I can help out at all, I would be willing to do that.
Mr. Quinn, thank you. Ms. Peterson?
Well, for me, it's essentially continuing the legacy that my parents started. I feel like it's my turn. My mom just passed away a couple of years ago. My dad passed away in 1981. My dad is actually memorialized here in town, down by the flagpole. And I just felt like, okay, I guess I'm a grown-up now. It's my turn to do this. And just honoring the history, honoring all of the people that I loved and knew growing up that are part of this town, and just helping to still keep their memories alive even though they're not here anymore. As far as the fun activities, my daughter, one time we were at a parade downtown, and I was like, well, let's wait for the parade to come back. And she said, Mom, it's not Green Mountain Falls, the parades don't turn around and come back, And we need that. We need the small town. We need our parade to turn around, and we need it to come back, because that's where we are. That's who we are, and we don't want to change that. We want to keep it like that. We want to have a good place for our kids and grandkids to grow up, to be safe, to know our neighbors, to know what's going on. I couldn't get away with anything. My daughters couldn't get away with anything. Everybody knew who they were, and when they were out and about, it was good because I knew where everyone was too. People live in different parts of town. They know you, they know your kids, and it's a good, safe place to raise a family, and it's a good home place, and we need to keep it that way, and we need to foster that.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Newberry?
I'm just so excited to have this opportunity to stay with the board and keep moving forward. I think we have an incredibly bright future. We've had some rough patches here in the past, but we've come through them. We've had some great things come our way. We've had fire, we've had flood, we're moving forward. And I think it's so important to keep that enthusiasm, that sense of community, that excitement, that sure enough, we can do better, and we will do better. We have a bright future, and I think we need to move forward with that. I would also like to say I've been so honored by all of you coming here with questions, by people coming to meet me and call and send email. I think your questions have been incredible and insightful and thoughtful, and they show the love that you have for your community. And I think that's amazing, and I've been very honored, and I want to thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Green Mountain Falls Candidates Forum tonight. I want to personally say thank you for allowing me to come down the hill from to be your moderator this evening. Simon, thank you. You've done an excellent job with time. I want to thank the candidates for coming out tonight and answering the questions. It's all about information and letting people know what you stand for in your candidacy. So with that, I'd say good night and have a safe trip home.
Abby wants to hug you.
Oh, come inside. Joe, they can come in.
Chris, it was so nice to meet you.